In his final statement, "I have no enemies," he wrote, "Freedom of expression is the foundation of human rights, the source of humanity, and the mother of truth. As we support those fighting for freedom from China's oppression, we do so in the name of human rights, humanity, and truth. If we do not speak out for human rights in China because of economic concerns, then we lose all moral authority to talk about human rights in any other place in the world."
We all know that the spirit of Tiananmen is still alive and well. We know in part because China's leaders demonstrate their fear of it every day with their security cameras, their censorship, detention centers, and obsession with preventing the people of China from learning the truth. Imagine the time and energy and cost of monitoring and tracking the actions of 1.4 billion people. They are scared because the truth of Tiananmen threatens the Chinese Communist Party's legitimacy to govern China.
I think today's anniversary will remind us that the fundamental human yearning for dignity and human rights and basic rights is not limited to any one region or limited to one country or limited to one culture. These aspirations have transcended geography and culture throughout the history of man. Today we honor the lives that were irrevocably altered by the events of that day, those who perished, those who were imprisoned and tortured, those who lost mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters, and those whose loved ones remain missing and unaccounted for. Tiananmen must not be viewed exclusively through the lens of history. Rather, today we must also reckon with the ongoing systematic human rights abuses committed by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government against its own people. And we must reckon with the emerging and new geopolitical competition between tyranny and liberty, between democracy and totalitarianism.
Unfortunately, parallels can be drawn between the Chinese government that perpetrated the Tiananmen Square massacre and the current repressive regime being led by President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party. In China today, there is official government repression of the freedom of speech, religion, movement, association, and assembly. We know at least 1 million, and some estimate up to 3 million Chinese Muslims are forcibly interned in detention camps designed to erase their religious and ethnic identities. This is something out of the 30s and the 40s that the world said would never happen again. It's happening right now.
Dictators need to understand that freedom can only be held back for a finite period of time. They may succeed in crushing a democratic protest, but they will always fail to crush the democratic spirit.
我今天带着很沉痛的心情，在这里借着这个机会，呼吁中共当局勇于承认错误，平反六四，并即刻停止对人权的迫害，让未来中国人民也和台湾人民一样，享有自由、民主、人权的生活。今天在这里纪念六四30周年的另一个重要的意义，是要我们时时提醒自己，必须要更加珍惜台湾几十年来得来不易的自由与民主。
Well, I was in college when that image, or just about, I was leaving high school and going into college, and obviously there was a time when the world seemed to be reinventing itself and everything around the world was changing, and there was hope that that was the beginning of a different era, and unfortunately it tremendous bravery, but didn't lead to the democratic opening that we had hoped for the people in China.
Well, I'll never forget the young man who was standing in front of the tank on Tiananmen Square. It was a testament to the spirit of the human individual who wants to enjoy basic freedoms and the courage in order to achieve it. And I had hoped that it would be a turning point for China in terms of more openness for its people. Unfortunately, it became more oppressive as a result of it.
I remember both being sort of shocked, appalled, but also just incredibly invigorated by the courage and bravery of people in Tiananmen who stood up against this overreach by China and the decision that they had made. The question is, where are we today? and I am concerned with the direction China is taking. Do they have less freedom, less opportunity? It seems like they have more economic freedom, but less personal, social freedom.
Oh, it was obviously it was. We saw the courage of a lot of Chinese standing up to the repressive government. The reaction of the government was outrageous. It was, I think, it galvanized international opinion against the regime, and it was tragic. And to this day, it's a symbol of courage of protesters and the repressiveness of the Chinese government.
I wasn't in Congress yet when that happened. So I was a civilian back in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I remember watching it on television and being very moved by the spirit and what it represented, and thinking that perhaps the people of China were going to have the freedoms that happened to the people in Eastern Europe behind the Iron Curtain. And then all of a sudden, after a couple of days, and the students meeting with the government and being basically rejected in their very reasonable proposals, the tanks came out and people were killed, probably many thousands, although the PRC has always kept those numbers from the public.
对于我来说，这六四啊，其实在我心里没有结束。是从89年一直到现在，为什么我觉得它没有结束？因为真相我们没有得到，而且大大小小的六四啊还在中国发生，杀戮、欺压、不正义的事情天天都在发生。所以我参加这个活动，我感觉到很好，而且我也很感动，因为在这个六四之后的这30年中，有这样一批人，他们坚守在这里。他们每年无论来的人多人少，他们在守护这种精神。
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to. We've been clear. Our ask is that our allies and our partners and our friends don't do anything that would endanger our shared security interests or restrict our ability to share sensitive information. Friends speak to each other quite honestly, and we had the opportunity to do that today. We're not afraid of a little competition from China. I know the people of the Netherlands aren't either. We want to compete on a free, fair, open, reciprocal basis. And I know if we do that, both the Netherlands and the United States will continue to be successful economic countries.
大家好，我叫蓝洋。我们必须坚持把这个记忆传递下去，因为这是我们在中国现代史上唯一的空前绝后，目前为止还没有后的一个重大的事件。它体现了我们中国人并不是一个低劣的，就是应该在被集团统治的民族。我们曾经有过辉煌的抗争。
I think today's anniversary will remind us that the fundamental human yearning for dignity and human rights and basic rights is not limited to any one region or limited to one country or limited to one culture. These aspirations have transcended geography and culture throughout the history of man. Today we honor the lives that were irrevocably altered by the events of that day, those who perished, those who were imprisoned and tortured, those who lost mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters, and those whose loved ones remain missing and unaccounted for. Tiananmen must not be viewed exclusively through the lens of history. Rather, today we must also reckon with the ongoing systematic human rights abuses committed by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government against its own people, And we must reckon with the emerging and new geopolitical competition between tyranny and liberty, between democracy and totalitarianism.
Today, we remember the brutal massacre that the Chinese government committed against its own people 30 years ago. We remember the courage of the students, workers, and citizens who peacefully defied an oppressive regime to demand the liberties and human rights that they deserved. We all remember that they raised the goddess of democracy in the image of our own Statue of Liberty, how they quoted our founders, how the tanks and troops crushed their protest but could not extinguish the flame of freedom burning in their hearts. 30 years later, one of the enduring images of the 20th century remains seared into our shared conscience, a lone man standing in the street bringing a line of tanks to a grinding halt. I was sad to learn when years later, going back to China, that most students in the universities and the rest have no idea of that image. When they're asked what they think it stands for, they say, well, is it an ad for something? Is it an ad for a drink, a soda, or something like that? The Chinese have totally suppressed what happened at Tiananmen Square, as well as the lone man standing before the tank, revered in the whole world, but unknown to young people in China.